Good morning, dear children. Today we begin with session 2 of chapter Principles of Management, or the importance of management principles. So, why are these principles important? Why do these principles become important in the life of a manager? So, you need to understand, children, that proper understanding of these management principles is very necessary and helpful for the managers, because these principles, as we discussed yesterday, that these principles are the general guidelines. They guide the behavior of the managers, they guide the managers how to act in an organization. Hence, these principles act as guidelines for managerial activities. And by practicing these principles, managers can avoid various mistakes while dealing with people in the organization. So, I repeat, since principles of management guide the activities of the managers in an organization, hence they become very, very important. So, what is the significance? Why are these important? There are a few points that we'll go through today. The first point is useful insight into reality. Useful insight into reality can be understood as these principles of management. They help the managers to get one-to-one interaction, to get face-to-face with the real world, because when management because these principles, while applying these principles, rather, they improve the knowledge, ability and understanding of managers under various managerial situations. So the effects of these principles help the managers to learn from their mistakes. So once you learn from your mistake, definitely you get an insight. You are able to face the reality when you learn from your mistakes. So these principles guide managers to take right decisions at the right time. So hence we can say that when managers, while applying the principles, learn from their mistakes, they are able to take right decisions at the right time. This is how these principles of management help the managers in getting a useful insight into reality, facing the reality. Learning from mistakes is learning from your mistakes refers to getting an insight into reality. The second importance, children, that these principles of management, they help in optimum utilization of resources. So what do we understand by optimum utilization? When resources are not wasted, they are optimally used. Neither they are overexhausted nor they are underused. So this is optimum utilization, and principles of management, you'll always find these principles insisting on, laying emphasis on planned activities and systematic organization of men and material in the organization. So as I said, principles, they guide, they are the guidelines, so they will always help in optimum utilization of both men and material. Principles are designed to get maximum benefits from the human efforts and the other resources. So principles of management would always ensure that neither the resources are overexhausted nor they are underused. Hence, it is an optimum utilization of resources. The third importance, significance of management principle is that these principles, they help the managers in taking scientific decisions. Now, what are scientific decisions here in management? Children, managers need to take n number of decisions, every day. But when that decision is rightly taken, depending upon facts and figures, that is practically, any decision which is taken practically by a manager, studying the situation properly, logically by a manager, that decision is known as a scientific decision. A manager should not believe in rule of thumb. Or what is rule of thumb? Rule of thumb says whatever happened in the past, not necessary that it would happen in present also. Hence, the decisions in present should be taken on behalf of, should be based on the practical facts and figures of today. So any such decision taken by a manager is a scientific decision. But how will he take it? These principles only would help the manager in taking a decision scientifically. The next importance is that these management principles, they help the managers in meeting changing requirement. Children, we've already discussed in the previous chapter how important it is for the management to change according to the changing environment, right? So every businessman has to make changes in the organization according to the changes taking place in the business environment, and management principles would simply train these managers how to implement the changes in the right direction and at a right level in the organization. Why? Because principles of management are general guidelines. They would only guide managers how to bring those changes in the organization, how to motivate the employees also to adapt those changes in the organization. Again, why? For the overall objective, for the achievement of the overall objective of an organization. So principles of management, they help the managers how to adapt the changes according to the changing environment outside. The next importance of management principle is effective administration. So children, by now I'm sure you know administration is the work of which level of management? Administration is the function of top level of management. So if administration is the function of top level management, then what do top level management do? They frame policies. The major plans are formed by the top level management. So the management principles, again, they act as guidelines and they form the base to form various administrative policies to have systematic working in the organization. So when the administration is effective, when the top level management is effective, automatically that same effectiveness would delegate from top to middle to supervisory, and from supervisory level to the actual workers in the organization. So these principles of management, they do not only guide the managers, but even the top level management is guided by these principles of management. These principles of management, they form the base in framing various policies and plans in the organization. Now all these significance, the points of significance will be more clear to you children once you start understanding what principles are we talking about, which is the topic for tomorrow. What principles are we going to discuss? The next importance of principles of management is they help in fulfilling social responsibility. So children, again, we know that social objective is one of the most important objectives of an organization. Corporate social responsibility. We all know that organizations, since they are a part of society, they use the resources of society. Hence, they have certain responsibility towards the society as well. So these principles of management, when I say they are guidelines, they do not only guide the managers to achieve only the organizational objectives. Rather, these principles of management also guide the managers in achieving social responsibility. Say, for example, giving fair remuneration to the employees, or generating more and more employment opportunity in a particular area where you opened up a plant, where you established a plant. So these come under social responsibilities, and fair remuneration is one of the principles of management which we'll study later. So principles of management, they do not only guide the managers in achieving organizational objectives, rather they help in fulfilling social responsibility as well. So children, the last point of importance of principles of management is that these principles of management, they act as the base for management training, research and education. Now, what do you understand by this? We've already read in the previous chapter that management is a profession. We all know, children going for BBAs and MBAs. So management is a profession. Management is a training, right? So professional courses such as MBAs, BBAs also teach these principles as part of their curriculum. The management principles, they stress on scientific judgments and logical thinking. I repeat, children, these management principles, they stress on scientific judgments, as we studied in the third point, that it helps the managers in taking scientific decisions. Means they are based on scientific judgments and logical thinking. So as a result, these principles, they act as base for doing research and development in management studies. These principles provide organized body of knowledge. This is also we studied in the previous chapter that management, both as science, art, and profession, includes a systematized body of knowledge. So it performs a research work and generates more and more knowledge, right? So they have provided new ideas, imagination, and these principles only, they provide base for research and development. These principles of management are at the core of management theories. They act as base for management training and education. Hence these principles become important. So it's not that only you are studying these principles in class 12, you'll study these principles in more and more detail. These principles will be studied even in graduation and post-graduation because they form the base for all management studies. So these were the points of importance of management principles, that these principles help the managers in facing the reality. They help in optimum utilization of resources, means no wastage. Scientific decisions means logical decisions, scientific judgments being made by managers, meeting changing requirements, changing according to the changing environment outside. The top level management becomes effective because their framing of policies is guided by the principles of management. These principles help the managers in fulfilling social responsibilities, and these principles of management, they do form the base. They are the core of management training, research, and education.